Hello everybody, it's Marian from Discover and I'm going to be sharing today's story with you. It's a folktale called The Old Lady Who Lived Inside a Vinegar Bottle. Now a vinegar bottle sounds like it would make a rather interesting home. I wonder what the old lady thinks of it. Let's find out, shall we? So, once upon a time, there was an old lady and she lived inside a vinegar bottle. Now this vinegar bottle was bigger than most, but it still made for a rather squashed home. And there was only enough room for the old lady and a couple of pieces of furniture. Now the problem, of course, with living in a vinegar bottle was the smell. No matter how many times the old lady polished or scrubbed or cleaned, she could not get rid of the smell. So at night, she would sit outside in the fresh air, looking up at the beautiful twinkling stars, and she would moan. "Oh, 'tis a shame, 'tis a shame, 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 that I, an old lady, should have to live here in a smelly vinegar bottle. I should live in a sweet little cottage with flowers around the door and a vegetable patch in the garden. That is what I deserve. 'Tis a shame, 'tis a shame." Now, as luck would have it, at that exact moment, a fairy had been flying by and they caught everything the old lady had said. Now, fairies are well known for making people's dreams come true, and this fairy was no exception. They were extremely kind and wanted to help the old lady. So they said, "If that is what you want, then that is what you shall get. Tonight, before you go to sleep, clap your hands once and turn around 3 times in your bed. And in the morning, you shall see what you shall see." Now the old lady thought this was rather odd. They'd never met a fairy before and, the instructions were rather strange, but with nothing to lose, she did as she was told. That night in her vinegar bottle, she clapped her hands once and she turned around in her bed 3 times. And in the morning she woke up in a beautiful cottage with flowers around the door and a vegetable patch in the garden. "Oh," she said with delight, "this is lovely. This is so lovely. I will be so happy here." And she was so busy smelling her flowers that she forgot to say thank you to the fairy. But the fairy couldn't stop. The fairy had important fairy business to do. So up and off they flew. They flew north, they flew south, they flew east and they flew west, and they did all the things that fairies like to do, until after some time they wondered how the old lady was, and they decided to pay her a visit. So they flew back to the cottage and found the old lady outside, and she was moaning. "Oh, 'tis a shame, 'tis a shame, 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 that I, an old lady, should live here all alone, with no one but the birds to keep me company. I should live where there are lots of people coming and going, keeping me company, like on the edge of a town. Oh, yes, that is what I deserve. 'Tis a shame, 'tis a shame." The fairy was disappointed because they wanted to make the old lady's dreams come true. So they said, "Well, if that is what you want, then that is what you shall get. Tonight, before you go to sleep, clap your hands once and turn around in your bed 3 times. And in the morning, you shall see what you shall see." The old lady did as she was told, and in the morning she woke up to the sound of all sorts of things going on outside her window. So she rushed over, opened up the curtains, opened up the window, stuck her head out, and there were lots of tradespeople coming and going, Horses and carriages passing, neighbours going about their day. "Ooh," she said, "this is exciting. This is so exciting. I shall be most happy here." And she was so busy waving at all of her new neighbours that she forgot to say thank you to the fairy. But the fairy couldn't stop. The fairy had important business to do. So up and off they flew, flying north, flying south, flying east and flying west, doing all the things that fairies like to do, until time passed and they wondered how the old lady was in her dream home. So they decided to pay her a visit. But when they arrived at the edge of town, she wasn't in her window. In fact, it was closed. The curtains were drawn, and the old lady was sat in the corner of her room, and she was moaning. "Oh, 'tis a shame, 'tis a shame, 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 that I, an old lady, should have to live here in a noisy, noisy house. I never get a moment's peace, all these people coming and going. I should live in a bigger house in the centre of town, with a maid to help me do all my housework, and a big brass door knocker, so people have to knock, knock, knock if they want my attention. That is what I deserve. 'Tis a shame, 'tis a shame." The fairy couldn't believe they still hadn't got this wish right. So they said to the old lady, "Well, if that is what you want, then that is what you shall get. Tonight, before you go to sleep, clap your hands once and turn around in your bed 3 times. And in the morning, you shall see what you shall see." So the old lady did as she was told. And when she woke up in the morning, she was in a much comfier bed. And there was a maid bringing her a morning cup of tea, and people knocking on her door. "Oh," she said, "this is lovely. This is so lovely. I shall be most happy here with my tea, and they shall have to wait for when I'm ready to see them." And she was so busy enjoying her cup of tea that she forgot to say thank you to the fairy. But the fairy couldn't stop. The fairy had important business to do. So up and off they flew. They flew north, they flew south, they flew east and they flew west, and they did all the things that fairies like to do, until after some time they wanted to see how the old lady was, happy in her new home. So they flew back to town, knocked on her door, but got no reply, flew up to the window and saw her sat there by her bed, and she was moaning. "Oh, 'tis a shame, 'tis a shame, 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 that I, an old lady, should live in a draughty townhouse like this, with just one maid to help me do all the work. I should live in a bigger palace, where I am the queen with lots of servants. Ooh, that is what I deserve. 'Tis a shame, 'tis a shame." The fairy was feeling rather disappointed by now. They just couldn't seem to help this old lady. So they said, "Well, if that is what you want, then that is what you shall get. Tonight, before you go to sleep, clap your hands once and turn around 3 times in your bed, and in the morning you shall see what you shall see." The old lady did as she was told, and she woke up to a big, big bed with not one but many servants around her, and everything sparkled with gold. "Oh, ew," she said, "this is nice. This is very nice. I shall be most happy here." And she was so busy ordering her servants around, arranging all sorts of parties and balls in the palace, that she forgot to say thank you to the fairy. But the fairy couldn't stop to enjoy the palace. They had important business to do, so off and off they flew, flying north, flying south, flying east and flying west, doing all the things that fairies like to do, until a year passed, and they couldn't help but think about the old lady. I mean the Queen, and they wanted to see how she was doing. So they flew back to the palace, into the throne room where the Queen was sat, with a golden crown on her head, a beautiful velvet gown, and lots of sparkly jewels. And she was moaning. Oh, oh, 'tis a shame, 'tis a shame that I should be the queen of such a small little country. I should be the ruler of something much bigger. I should be the ruler of the entire universe, where I get to rule over all of my things. That is what I deserve. 'Tis a shame, 'tis a shame. Now the fairy couldn't believe what they were hearing. Nothing seemed to make this old lady happy, and if she couldn't be happy as a queen in a palace, oh, maybe there was one place that would make her happy. So the fairy said, well, if that is what you want, then that is what you shall get. Tonight, before you go to bed. Oh, don't tell me, interrupted the Queen. Let me guess, I have to clap my hands once and turn around in my bed 3 times. Yes, I know. Off you go. And she shooed the fairy out, and all the servants were ordered to close up the curtains and make her bed ready so she could fall asleep early that evening. And she did as she was told. She clapped her hands once, she turned around 3 times, and in the morning she woke up inside her vinegar bottle, the ruler of her own universe. Because if she couldn't be happy there, she wouldn't be happy anywhere. And that is the end of our tale. Thank you everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed that story, and come and visit Discover again soon for even more story adventures. Bye bye for now everybody.